Navigating Modern Manhood, exploring what it means to be a father, a husband, and a man in the 21st century. Now with your hosts, Scott and David. So hello and welcome. If this is your first time with Navigating Modern Manhood, I'm David, and Scott, welcome.
G'day, David. Good to see you again.
Absolutely. Good to see you as well. And today we wanted to discuss with you your thoughts, well, certainly hear your thoughts, Scott, and share some of mine around becoming a father. So the whole point about navigating modern manhood is that we could be fathers, we could be spouses, we could be, uncles, we could be leaders and role models for younger people, especially younger boys. And I know the book Raising Boys was very important back when we were younger, Scott. But I don't know, let's kick off and think about, what was your motivation for becoming a father? Was it something you always wanted to do? How did it come about?
For sure, yeah, something I always wanted to do. Always had a connection with kids. I just enjoy their sense of wonder, their exploratory side.
Mhm.
And I think deep down there was probably a part as well, like to continue the lineage of the name and whatnot. However, that wasn't my main focus. It was just literally, it was something that I wanted to do. I got one brother, older brother, 2 years older than me. And I saw, along with the frustration, I saw the joy that we brought to our parents and the way that we could interact and play and entertain ourselves and grow. So that's something that I wanted. And also, I've heard growing up and everywhere and experienced it, luckily enough to experience it, that they are our greatest teachers. So, they get to show us where we're going wrong, what we're doing right, and really push our boundaries to say, hey, are you actually in line with your values? Are you doing what you need to do? So it was, something that I wanted, and I thought maybe it'll make Jasmina and my relationship stronger. And that's an external validation. It's something that's not necessary, but that's where I was at that point in time.
Yeah, cool. And was it something? You seem a younger father, so was it something that you had any time frame or time plan in mind?
Strangely enough, yes. When I was drinking, it was like, when I celebrate my 50th, I want to be able to have a beer with my son and my daughter, whatever it's going to be. So I want them to be 18 by the time I turn 50. So that was my one thing. I was like, if I can be lucky enough to have a kid before I'm 32, then that'll meet that need.
Yeah.
However, that need's no longer there because I don't drink. So, but be able to celebrate in any way, shape, or form is something that's there. And also, I wanted to be a young father in the sense to be able to still be mobile and run around and play with the kids, not be the old man sitting in the corner and just going, I can't do this, come back when you can play cards or game of chess or something like that.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with cards and chess, but I was being active is one of my values. So it's something that I wish I did.
That's really cool. It's funny that you said 50 because that was also my kind of marker in the sand. Years ago, I had a longer term girlfriend, and she had said, I want to travel to Europe and live in England and the UK as Australians could back in those, probably still can now, back in those days. And so I had the same thoughts that how old will do I want my children to be when I'm 50? And like you, I thought, well, at least maybe one as an adult or of adult age. And so I was 29 and 3/4 when my first son was born. And it means now that, some 14 years on, that, people often say, or I meet other men of similar age in their mid 40s who, have children who are younger. In fact, maybe even 1 and 2 year olds or 3 year olds. They're still in that stage. Whereas I'm now dealing with almost having 2 pubescent boys in the house, 14 and 10. So, it's a different stage of life, and I'm still feeling young and fresh enough. But like you, I was thinking, at 50, what do I want to have? And when my dad turned 50, I was 25. So, we were all basically adults in our family when my dad turned 50. And that means now that you still then have a lot of years of life where the latter part of your life where you're not then in the throes of younger kids as such. But
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
really interesting.
And I think it's changed too. And it's like a lot of people nowadays have that big fear of, well, I'm not going to be ready until I've got enough money put aside and everything in a house to look after the kids. And I can tell you from experience, you're never ready.
No.
No matter what, no matter how you feel inside or how good you think you are, they will always cut you off at the ankles. You're never ready.
Yeah.
And that's the best part of it, right? That's where the growth and the experiment is. So that is, as I just mentioned at the beginning, about that childlike sense of wonder. You know, when you have a kid, everything, you are so scared that you're going to do something wrong, that you might hurt this tiny little fragile creature in your arms. It's a mini you. And you just get to explore everything with wonder. And when you experience things for the first time again, you really go back into that kid-child state whilst being responsible for another. It's an amazing experience.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think's been one of your greatest learnings from becoming a father?
Setting boundaries. I was and still am very adaptable. I didn't put myself first in a lot of situations, and the kids have taught me that, to put myself first, set the boundaries and say, hey, right, this is a boundary. Don't cross that line. If you cross that line, there's a consequence. And it made me be strong in who I am and actually enforcing those consequences. So it's all good to say there's going to be a consequence if you do something that I don't like. If you don't actually enforce that boundary, everybody's going to keep crossing that line. So in terms of personal development, they showed me exactly what I needed to do in that sense.
Yeah, right. Taking time to fill your own bucket before you then, well, when your bucket is full, you have more energy and life for your kids and family in that sense too, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So what about you? What did you pick up?
Yeah, I think in the last year, since becoming a emotional intelligence professional, my first certification was back in 2017, in fact. And I'm working on a project, and it's actually this book, At the Heart of Leadership by Joshua Friedman. It's put out by 6 Seconds that I work with. And at the end, he talks about, he has a special chapter on parenting and leadership within the sort of family environment. But I think what I really gained in developing my own sense of EQ is that realizing that, well, from the beginning, I wanted to be an involved dad. I wanted to be a co-parent with my wife. I wanted to be someone who, I don't want the kids looking back and saying, oh, dad never cooked us a meal, or dad didn't know how to iron a shirt, or dad was beholden to mom or someone else for something. I want them to see that I could be a full parent, a full figure in their lives. So, now when my wife goes away, she's away at the moment in Germany, the house functions, and it's maintaining that. I don't necessarily cook the same level of nutritious food as my wife, but they're not eating chips and McDonald's. We're not ordering in. We're not, I go out to the shops and I think, okay, what do I want? And I cook the food, and then help them with their assignments, and or help them with whatever they're working on in this moment. So being available, being there for the important moments, not just sort of bringing in money and using money maybe to solve things. So I think from the beginning I made that choice, and that was a choice I was deliberate in. But as I said, now as an EQ professional, I think too, how do I speak to them? How do I want to be with them? I don't want them fearing me as at times I feared my father. And so, I carry that fear now as a kind of constant, it's on my shoulder, and it permeates into other aspects of life. So I don't want them ever fearing me. I want them to come to me when they have a problem as adults now and well into the future. Dad, I need some advice, or Dad, can I just talk to you? And they know they can get that feeling from me always. That's something that I really feel is important, certainly as a modern man. And one of the things I know you also are similar in your thinking and ideas around Scott. So, what about you?
Absolutely. And I think one word links everything that you've just described there, and it's responsibility. That's right. So it's how we look at that word. So everything you were describing is you wanted to show your kids that you were responsible, that you can be responsible and not glued to somebody else to make things happen. So the responsible person takes care of their own things whilst also being able to look after others.
Yeah.
And, that's a brilliant one too, that you just said about you didn't want the kids to be afraid of you. You wanted them to be able to come talk to you about anything. Now, I saw a post on LinkedIn, which I really gelled with and I think is a brilliant idea. One father gave his kid a little note. It said, I want you to bring me this paper anytime you wanted me to discuss something with me and you're afraid that I might react or, yell or whatever. Bring me this paper and I'll just sit there and I'll be there for you.
Yeah.
And he questioned whether the kid actually thought about it. But the kid went and put it in his top drawer. And it's been multiple years later, I think you've seen the post as well, that it's come back and that paper's still there. It's been scrunched up a couple of times because it's been used. And that's the thing, the vulnerability and the responsibility to say, okay, I know I'm not perfect, but I'm here for you. So if you want to ever have any discussion or anything you're afraid about, come to me, I'll be there for you. And I think that's the true identity of a parent, is to provide that safety as well, whilst also enabling the kids to then go out and be their true selves.
Yeah. And I guess to know in that note, I really do like that example from LinkedIn that your children are a priority to you.
Correct.
I think that's another interesting word, responsibility and priority. So I'm sure, in the busyness of life, many of us for me sometimes too, I'm seemingly thinking, well, I'm doing the washing and I'm doing the cooking, the dinner, and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. But what do the kids actually see? They don't hear and see those mental thoughts that I'm having. They're just seeing that Dad. So yesterday, my son said to me, Dad, we've been given a foosball table to look after for a few years from friends. My son said, in the midst of it all, Dad, can we play a game of foosball? And I said, sorry, mate, not right now. And I was a bit more direct in my tone. And so, okay. But then afterwards, when we'd done the dinner and my other son had things he needed, I was able to say, hey, mate, I've got some time now. Do you want to have that game of foosball? I'm sorry I couldn't have it before. I was busy with these things. So hopefully he understands, Dad made the priority, but he just couldn't do it in that moment. I don't think we want to get to the extreme of every wish our kid has or kids have that we're just fulfilling instantly. They have to learn that sometimes there's other things that have priority, but that priority will come for them, you see? So
absolutely.
I could have forgotten about it. I could have thought, he doesn't care. No, he cares. And I can show him in that moment, even if we have just 5 minutes. So we played a good game. He won and he felt great. So it's one of those things then that you say, right, what's the lesson here? The lesson is to answer their call, like you're saying, with that scrunched up piece of paper, being able to give them the sense of priority and that you have that responsibility for their well-being.
Absolutely. And it ticks off one of the main needs of humans, which is to be heard, right? So your ability to actually listen and then say, right, I've heard you. Right now is not the appropriate time. When the time is right, I'll come to you. And so it's like, I will meet your needs. Your needs can get met. They just don't happen the exact time that you want it. And that's one of the traps that I fell into. Is I used to drop everything. The kids said, I want this, I want that, I want this. Okay, so I went and did it straight away.
Yeah.
What I ended up realizing was I was creating, sort of to a degree, little mini narcissists. I want this, and I want it now. And if I don't get it now, I'm going to throw the tantrum, and you're the bad one, and you're guilty, you're naughty, and everything else. Okay, comes back to that responsibility and priorities, exactly as you said.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard you. I'm not disregarding you. We're going to get there. However, there are steps and things that need to be done beforehand. And that's where it was those boundaries and actually me standing up for myself first instead of just adapting to everybody else's needs.
Yeah, cool.
So
I guess as a thought now, I'd love to hear some of your advice to maybe men who are, their wives are pregnant, men who maybe have just had new kids, or even men who, these days, of course, we fall into relationships where people already have children. And so some men will be coming to a relationship where there's already previous children, and they may not have been fathers already. So they may play eventually a whole stepfather role. They're there as fathers, or not a replacement, but they're in that mix. So
Yeah.
what would you say to all those types of, new to fatherhood type men?
You're going to get thrust into it, whether you realize it or not. It's not just a relationship with your partner. You're actually creating a relationship with another human being as well, whether it's being a step parent or a new parent. It's not, everything's going to change. And the most important thing is not to forget yourself. You are still a priority. You need to be able to look after yourself first in order to give the best of yourself to everybody else. So it's like your wife or your partner has just given birth to a new kid. The relationship between the two of you is completely going to change because there's someone else who is more dependent on your wife or your partner than you are in that moment. It doesn't mean you're irrelevant.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you've been knocked off the top perch in a sense that you're not valuable to me anymore.
Yeah.
You are. You need to look after yourself and realize that there are certain things that have changed in your environment that you need to bring balance to. So be accountable to yourself first. Ask yourself the question, what relationship do I want to do? Especially as a step parent, you come in. Okay, for sure, there's always going to be issues. The most important thing is to rely upon the relationship between your partner. And then, okay, what does a child, depending on the age group, need from me? And what do I wish to be able to give to them? Also asking yourself, what do I want from them? So if there's something that you want or something that you need from them, go and model it to them first. Create that relationship and be open. Don't be a closed box. Go in with open ears and don't just say that's my way or the highway, because that'll create distrust, resentment, friction, a whole lot of things. So I think the key there is just stay true to yourself whilst being aware of what's happening in your surroundings, because everything changes.
Yeah. Nice.
What about yourself? What would you give?
I'm reading a book at the moment called The Speed of Trust. So I'm thinking about, as you were speaking, it sounds too like trust in yourself, that you are able to take on that role as father or stepfather. But like you mentioned before, it's not my way or the highway. We need to create trust with our partner, with a stepchild, especially if they're a little bit older. And that really takes small steps, and I'm thinking now, eventually, I guess in a step relationship, you might work with the kids to say, well, what can we do together that builds trust? And I realize now, I do karate with my older son, and I'm learning trumpet with my younger son, because he expressed an interest in trumpet and he expressed an interest in karate. They were inspired by the fact that I have done karate and trumpet in my life, and they said, hey, Dad, I really want to try that. Okay, let's give it a go.
That's something you can bond over too and build that greater relationship with.
Yeah. So it's you're building and checking in with, and sort of not being the my way or the highway, but let's go together. I'm not your friend, but let's go together. I'm still playing this role and you play that role, but we walk together. And I think that's probably a key for some step relationship. Maybe we could bring on someone who's at some point been thrust into that stepfather role, and maybe a new dad as well in another conversation, and thinking about that identity shift. I think for me is realizing, as you said, taking time for yourself, but being responsible and understanding, well, what does that mean, and what kind of father do you want to be? And of course, relying on men's groups like we're trying to establish here, or other groups, and of course your spouse. As much as we don't like hearing feedback sometimes, you were a bit harsh then, or why did you say that? That can be a nice mirror sometimes to say, okay, yeah, maybe I did step a bit too far. Maybe my emotions, this is where EQ comes in, my own emotions become dysregulated. I think as a father too, even with young kids, when you can't get your baby to sleep, sometimes that can send you into a rage spiral. and you then have to understand, how can you come back from that? How can you shift? How can you step back? And I think that's part of that key is having that awareness and then that responsibility to do something in that moment. Yeah.
So true. And that awareness and responsibility means reaching out for support. Right.
Yeah.
So as you said, you're stepping together with your sons with the karate and learning the trumpet. That's support together.
Yeah.
It's also enabling them to be who they wish to be, whilst supporting them along the journey, and then enabling you to do what you want to do. You want to have that interaction with your kids. You want to support them. You want to be there for them. So everybody's needs are getting met, right? No one's being disregarded. No one's being left behind. You're all on a level playing field.
Yeah.
Okay. You might have a slightly higher importance because you're the man of the house, or you bring income in, or whatever it is. So in every family structure, there is a certain level of when you go for it, who's the most important person in the house? A lot of people go straight away, oh, my kid's the most important thing to me. I hate to break it to you. You're important, because without your job, whether it's the husband or the wife, without your job, you wouldn't be able to put the food on the table, the roof over the head, or anything else like that. So it's just having that little perspective around it. Yes, in terms of value, they feel super important to you. The idea is not to get enmeshed with them. As you said, support and walk alongside them with them.
Yeah. I want to challenge that phrase, you're the man of the house, to you're a man in the house.
100% agree.
And I think that's part of what we want to let go of. Modern men would say, I'm a man in the house. I'm a contributor. I'm responsible. I may be the oldest man in the house, for instance, but I'm playing my part. I think that old thing of, well, I'm the man of the house, I'm bow down to me kind of feeling doesn't, I don't know, it feels old. That's why I'm asking. That's what I'm thinking about.
Cool. Run with it, because, and this is the thing, this is what we're challenging, this is what we're discussing right now, is what is the man of the house? So the man of the house, what is the modern man? The modern man isn't necessarily the provider. There's a lot of relationships where I know whether the partner is the provider, the partner is the one that brings everything in. I got a great friend in Sydney. He was going great guns in his business, going where he wanted. His partner was in an equally good job. Then he decided, he decided he wanted to have kids. They had a discussion, everything else. They went kids. And the discussion eventuated where he was like, right, I'm going to support you. I'm going to be the man of the house, and you can be the provider. So this that patriarchal shift and the role has changed, right? So it used to be the man would bring the money, bring the meat home, the wife would cook it, and the kids would be looked after, and the man would just relax, and that was it. Yeah, that was 100 years ago or more, And now it's about living and interacting as a family unit. So when I say I'm the man of the house, I agree. It's the man in the house. But the man of the house is who is the man that I wish to show to my kids.
Great.
Am I open? Am I boxed? Am I listening? Am I dominant? What am I? And this is where it's the modern man. What is the modern man? And this is where we get to explore. And this is only just your view and my view. And as you say, we'll get some guests on and hear their sides of it. And it just comes down to that word, I've said it a lot, it's modeling. And this is what I challenge people when I mentor them, or when I give them some Reiki healing, is, okay, what do you need to model in the situation for you that's going to get the best out of yourself for others? So what's the impact that you're going to have? And that's the question that I always ask myself, especially when you said, when you get that rage, when the kid's not asleep, you got to step back and go, right, what am I showing to my kids? What am I demonstrating in this moment? Is that something that I would be proud of when I look back? And then if I actually see my kids following my footsteps and have that rage and not know how to handle it, is that something I'm proud of? So it's about that impact that I can have on them. So for sure, okay, there's the modern days now coming. You got binary, numerary, the people that disassociate from gender and everything else. For sure, it was a ingrained pattern of the word the man in the house, but it's something that I don't shy away from, because I associate myself as a man, right? This is me, this is who I am. It's how I am in my mind compared to how other people might perceive what a man would be in their house.
Yeah.
And the most important thing for me is asking myself why. Why am I doing everything in a certain situation? Is it for me? And then what's the impact it's going to have on?
Yeah.
So by being a parent, you want to be the best you can for them, to provide the best opportunity for them to get the most of them out of themselves in life. And exactly with you, with emotional intelligence, if you can't communicate your emotions openly and wisely to your kids, how can you expect them to communicate the same thing back to you?
Mm-hmm.
And expectations is a word that holds so much weight. And I didn't want to link into that, but it's like, what would you like from them to come and be able to talk with?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool. And it's like, even when Jazz and I, we might have a disagreement over something. I wish to model to my kids that even though we don't agree, we can have an open discussion about it. If we still have different values on the opposite side, I can appreciate her side and understand. I don't necessarily have to agree with it, but it's something we can discuss and work through together and find a solution. And that's where I was like, it's not my way or the highway.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Scott. Fabulous advice for new dads out there. So we'll bring it to an end. And really, if there are modern men, younger fathers, newer fathers, I should say, it could be older, could be younger, it doesn't matter. We'd love to invite you on as a guest. Maybe you'd love to come on here with us and have a bit of a chat and just discuss some of your ideas, thoughts, and feelings about where you are right now, and really thinking about that. So thanks, Scott. I love hearing your thoughts, and they resonate with me and what we're aiming to achieve here with Navigating Modern Manhood. So we'll see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David. And looking forward to having some questions, or actually, as you said, guests on to join us. It'd be great. So cool. Wishing everybody well.
This has been another episode of Modern Manhood. And if you've enjoyed this episode, please click to subscribe and make sure you stay connected. We are Navigating Modern Manhood. Join Scott and David next time.